Buddha or Buddha Gautama, also known as Shakyamuni Buddha, was a great spiritual master from ancient India. Born as Prince Siddhartha Gautama in 5th century BC, he would have naturally inherited the vast wealth of a kingdom. However, the prince one day left the palace life in search of spiritual knowledge. After years of contemplative seeking, the Buddha attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. He then shared the merits of his practice by providing a method for other sentient beings to be freed from the cycle of death and rebirth. The rich treasury of Buddha's spiritual teachings on universal truths are studied and revered to this day for their deep wisdom and compassion. Today we would like to share with you the sage teachings of the Buddha, the Diamond Sutra. Renouncing virtue. A bodhisattva or spiritual practitioner who is attached to conceptions and perceptions and who renounces virtue is like a man groping in the dark. A bodhisattva or spiritual practitioner who is free from conceptions and perceptions and who renounces virtue is like a man whose eyes see all things clearly in the bright morning sun.
Buddha said, those good men and women who will take up this teaching on Dharma, true teaching, who will think on it, recite it, study it, and who will illuminate the whole of it for others, they are known to the Tathagata or Buddha enlightened being. He recognizes them by his Buddha cognition and perceives them with his Buddha eye. These good beings will each bring to fruition immeasurable and incalculable merit.
I recollect through my Buddha cognition, Subhuti, that in the remote past, aeons before the Supremely Enlightened One, I faultlessly served millions of Buddhas or enlightened beings throughout incalculable ages. Nevertheless, the merit gained by those who take up, remember, study, recite, and explain to others this discourse in the future, when the way is obscured, will surpass the merit gained in the service I render to all Buddhas or enlightened beings millions of times over. Their merit has no number. It is incalculable and incomparable.
If I were to teach just how vast this merit which will be gained in the future is, Subhuti, good men and women who hear me would become confused, mentally disturbed, and even frantic. But since the Tathagata, Buddha enlightened being, has taught that this discourse on Dharma, true teaching, is inconceivable, an incommensurable good karmic or retributive fruit should be expected from it.
Lead all beings to nirvana too. Subhuti asked, how, Buddha, does one who seeks the bodhisattva path tread it? Buddha answered, one who sets out on the bodhisattva path should continuously think, I must lead all beings to absolute nirvana, or the highest paradise. Nevertheless, even when all beings have been led to nirvana, or the highest paradise, no being in reality has been led to nirvana, or the highest paradise. For if the idea of a being, entity, or personality should arise in him, he is not a bodhisattva or spiritual practitioner. He who has set out on the bodhisattva path is not one of the dharmas or true teaching.
Do you think, Subhuti, that when the Tathagata or Buddha enlightened being was with the enlightened one, there was any dharma or true teaching by which he came to know supreme enlightenment? There was not, Subhuti answered, any dharma or true teaching by which the Tathagata or Buddha enlightened being has known supreme enlightenment.
For this reason, Buddha said, Tathagata signifies attributelessness, and if someone were to say, the Tathagata has fully known supreme enlightenment, the Dharma of the Tathagata is neither real nor unreal. Hence, the Tathagata teaches that all dharmas are the Buddha's own special dharmas. Why? The Tathagata has taught that all dharmas together are no dharma, named bodhisattva.
No, Buddha, Subhuti answered. Thus, Buddha continued, the Tathagata, Buddha enlightened being, teaches that all dharmas, true teachings, are selfless and are not beings, entities, or personalities. Even if a bodhisattva or spiritual practitioner wished to create tranquil Buddha fields, he should not be called a bodhisattva or spiritual practitioner. For the Tathagata, Buddha enlightened being, has taught that tranquil Buddha fields are not really tranquil Buddha fields. Subhuti, the bodhisattva or spiritual practitioner who continually swells on the selflessness of all dharmas or true teachings, however, is known by the Tathagata, the supremely enlightened one, as a bodhisattva of great courage.
What does the Tathagata see? Buddha asked Subhuti, "What do you think? Does the Tathagata, or Buddha or enlightened being, possess the physical eye?" "Yes, Buddha," Subhuti replied. "Does the Tathagata possess the divine eye of enlightenment?" "Surely, Buddha, the Tathagata possesses it."
Does the Tathagata possess the eye of transcendental wisdom, Subhuti? Indeed he does, Buddha. Does the Tathagata possess the Dharma eye? Yes, Buddha. And Subhuti, does the Tathagata possess the Buddha eye of universal compassion? Without doubt, Buddha, the Tathagata possesses all these eyes.
Comments on the mind. Subhuti, I know the mind of every sentient being in all the hosts of universes, regardless of any modes of thought, conceptions, or tendencies. For all modes, conceptions, and tendencies of thought are not mind, and yet they are called mind. Why? It is impossible to retain past thought, to seize future thought, and even to hold present thought.
Form is no form. Is the Tathagata to be seen, Buddha asked, in the manifestation of his form? Indeed not, Subhuti replied, for the Tathagata, Buddha, enlightened being, has taught that the manifestation of his form is no manifestation, even though it is called the manifestation of his form. The Buddha said, does the Tathagata, Buddha, enlightened being, think, I have demonstrated Dharma or true teaching? If anyone says the Tathagata has demonstrated Dharma, he speaks falsely, for he misunderstands the Tathagata by grabbing at what is not there. There is no Dharma, which could be taught as a demonstration of Dharma.
Being is non-being. Subhuti asked, in the distant future, when the way is obscured, will there be beings who, upon hearing these dharmas or true teachings, will believe them? Subhuti, Buddha replied, they would be neither beings nor non-beings, for the Tathagata, or Buddha or enlightened being, has taught that beings are not in truth beings, even though he has called them beings.
Summary of Dharma. Do you think, Subhuti, Buddha asked, there is any Dharma, true teaching, by which the Tathagata, Buddha, enlightened being, has known supreme enlightenment? There is no such Dharma, Buddha. Thus, Subhuti, no atom of Dharma, true teaching, is to be found. Therefore, enlightenment is called supreme. This Dharma, true teaching, is identical only with itself, and is undifferentiated. Therefore, it is called supreme enlightenment. Being unique and undifferentiated because of the absence of a self, entity, or personality, this supreme enlightenment is known as the collectivity of all good dharmas. But Subhuti, the Tathagata, Buddha enlightened being, has taught that dharmas are not in truth dharmas, even though they are called dharmas.
Does a Tathagata, or Buddha or enlightened being, ever think, I have liberated beings? Never imagine this, Subhuti, for there is no being to be liberated by the Tathagata. If the Tathagata, or Buddha or enlightened being, thought to liberate any being, a concept of self, entity, or personality would have arisen in him. The Tathagata has taught that the concept of self is no concept. Nevertheless, common people cling to the concept of self. The Tathagata has taught that the common people are not common people, even though they are called common people.
Who sees me by form, who sees me in sound? Perverted are his footsteps upon the way. For he cannot perceive the Tathagata, Buddha, enlightened being. The Buddhas, enlightened beings, are seen through Dharma, true teaching. From Dharma bodies their guidance comes. But the nature of Dharma, true teaching, is never discerned. It cannot be grasped by the mind alone.
Examples of misinterpretation. The Buddha said, "No one should say, 'Those who set out upon the Bodhisattva path presume the annihilation of a Dharma or true teaching,' for it is not so, Subhuti. Those who tread the Bodhisattva path do not presume the annihilation of any Dharma or true teaching."
Suppose, Subhuti, that a man or woman filled with the 7 treasures as many galaxies as there are grains of sand in the great Ganges, and then offered them all to the Tathagatas. And suppose a Bodhisattva spiritual practitioner patiently forbore all Dharmas, true teaching, which in themselves have no essence. This Bodhisattva would gain an immeasurably greater merit, and yet a Bodhisattva should gain no merit.
But would not, Buddha, Subhuti asked, a Bodhisattva or spiritual practitioner gain much merit? He would gain it, Subhuti, but he should not grasp it. Buddha continued, "If anyone says that the Tathagata, or Buddha or enlightened being, comes or goes, sits or reclines, he fails to understand my teaching. Why? The Tathagata has neither whence nor whither, and therefore he is called the Supremely Enlightened One."
If a man or woman took a galaxy for every particle of dust in this vast galaxy and thoroughly ground each one until it was reduced to atoms, would the heap of atoms be great? Indeed, Buddha, Subhuti answered, the heap of atoms would be immense, and yet this enormous heap of atoms is not really a heap of atoms, even though it is called a heap of atoms. Further, although the Tathagata has said galaxy, he teaches that it is not in truth a galaxy. For Buddha, if there were in truth a galaxy, it would be a material object to be seized upon, and the Tathagata, or Buddha enlightened being, has taught that there is no seizing at all.
Indeed, Subhuti, Buddha said, this seizing upon a material object is a convention of language, an expression devoid of real content. It is neither Dharma, true teaching, or Adharma, or irreligion or lack of dutifulness, even though ordinary people have seized upon it foolishly. Suppose, Subhuti, that someone said that the Tathagata, or Buddha or enlightened being, has taught a conception of a self, an entity or personality. Would he be right? Subhuti answered, "Not at all, Buddha. That which the Tathagata has called a conception of self is no conception."
Therefore, Subhuti, Buddha said, one who has set out on the Bodhisattva path should know all Dharma or true teaching and view them intently. Yet he should know them and view them in a way which does not give rise to a perception of any Dharma or true teaching. Why? The Tathagata has taught that perception of a Dharma is no perception, even though it is called perception of a Dharma.
Conclusion. Even if a bodhisattva or spiritual practitioner of great courage filled innumerable galaxies with the 7 precious treasures and offered them as a gift to the supremely enlightened ones, his merit would not compare with the immeasurable merit of a good man or woman who took just one stanza from this Prajnaparamita discourse on Dharma or true teaching and remembered, recited, and studied and illuminated it for others. How was this done? In a way which is free from appearances. Thus one illuminates it for others.
Like a meteor, like darkness, as a flickering lamp, an illusion like hoarfrost or a bubble, like clouds, a flash of lightning or a dream, so is all conditioned existence to be seen. Thus spoke Buddha.
Thank you for your enlightened presence for today's episode of Between Master and Disciples. Please stay tuned to Supreme Master Television for Planet Earth, Our Loving Home, coming up next after noteworthy news. May heaven grace your life with everlasting love and harmony.
For more details, please visit www.suprememastertv.com/BMD